Alright, this video is going to cover another parasite called Leishmania donovani, which causes visceral leishmaniasis. A second strain, Leishmania brasiliensis, causes something called cutaneous or mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. 3 different presentations, 2 strains, and 1 sketch to cover them all. In reality, cutaneous leishmania can be caused by several other strains as well, but for simplicity's sake, and because I like this 3-2-1 thing I just came up with, we'll focus on only these 2. Leishmania sounds like it would be a name of an 80s horror movie, and this infection is certainly one of the most gruesome you'll see. So we've made the scene about flesh-eating zombies, and it's called Desert Mania. The Donovani strain of protozoa exists mainly in the Mediterranean, Middle East, and Africa. The Middle East and Africa certainly have their fair share of deserts, which is why our scene is taking place in a desert. But let's focus on Leishmania brasiliensis for now. The host for this parasite is vertebrates, especially humans. So in the center of our scene, we'll place an undead Brazilian man rising out of the sand, arms extended and eyes glazed. See how his clothes are the same color as the Brazilian flag? He even has the flag on his belt. He'll represent cutaneous leishmaniasis, which is caused by Leishmania brasiliensis. In this form, the parasite consumes the flesh of its victims, causing disfiguring ulcers. Zombies, too, are flesh-eating, so our zombie character is extremely fitting. So he should remind you that brasiliensis causes cutaneous leishmaniasis. Humans may be the host, but flies are the vector. So more specifically, they're sandflies. So we'll have a swarm of sandflies encircle our walker, reminding us of the vector for leishmania. Sandflies should be easy to think of when you're thinking about a desert. Alright, before we continue, let's talk a little bit more about transmission. So we know that the sandfly is the vector, and it carries what's called the promastigote, which is the infective form of the parasite. In the host, the parasite takes on another form. It becomes an amastigote, which is an intracellular form, usually inside a macrophage. So here on the right, we'll draw our familiar cages that represent macrophages, and inside the cages we'll have goats, a mastigote. So altogether, it's a mastigotes inside macrophages. This finding is most important for diagnosis, which requires aspirates from marrow, spleen, lymph nodes, or skin lesions that are then spread on a slide and analyzed. We've added some weird-looking spots to these goats to show you what these amastigotes look like under the microscope. You can see that the cytoplasm around the big purple nuclei of the macrophages are filled with these tiny stained nuclei of the mastigotes. Okay, now we'll add this cowering, frightened man who has the fear of death in his eyes. His name will be Donovan, and look carefully at his skin. He has some scattered, hyperpigmented spots that pretty much look black. This represents one of the signs of visceral leishmaniasis, also known as black fever or Kala-Azar. It's probably the worst of the trio and is 100% fatal if left untreated. Again, visceral leishmaniasis is caused by Leishmania donovani, and our character, Donovan, will help us remember the symptoms. We've already covered these hyperpigmented lesions, so now look, he's making some offerings to the zombie, desperately trying to avoid his fate. Check out this pan filled with partially eaten meat. The last little bit of this homemade zombie offering looks like a red blood cell, and the other bits kind of look like platelets. That's because this empty pan will represent pancytopenia, which is caused by leishmaniasis. This happens once the bone marrow is infected. Now, visceral leishmania can affect almost every organ, but most commonly it affects the liver and spleen as well as the bone marrow, hence the term visceral. So to the left of the image, we'll add a cow, another offering, and this cow will have liver and spleen-shaped spots representing hepatosplenomegaly. This combination of symptoms, which are fever, pancytopenia, weakness, and hepatosplenomegaly, is characteristic of visceral leishmaniasis. Finally, how's this awful parasite treated? Traditional treatment is stibogluconate. What a strange name. So, Stibo, it's weird and meaningless, but we can take T-bow and represent it with this T-bone steak. The only offering that will stop the Leishmania zombie, T-bone stibogluconate. So stibogluconate can work for cutaneous leishmaniasis, but visceral leishmaniasis needs to be treated with amphotericin B. Wow, it's not just for fungal infections. Remember our symbol for amphotericin? I'd hope so. We should have hammered it in pretty good during the fungal videos. So we'll draw in some frogs, aka amphibians, for amphotericin. And in fact, since this is the desert, we might as well go full plague and add frogs all over. Alright, that's all for leishmania. Remember stibogluconate, because you're really not going to see it anywhere else. And remember those mastocytes and macrophages. A picture of those could definitely come up on a test, along with the other clinical findings of leishmaniasis. Alright, nice and short, so on to the next one.